As the schedule is about to be released, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the unknown of 2024 so you can make all of your plans. I'm going to do it right here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up? This is Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder, we are free to subscribe to wherever you get us. Tell you what to do. Go over to the YouTube page that is Locked On Jaguars. All you got to do is subscribe, like, and then hit the bell so that you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, you can, wherever you get your podcast that you listen to, in the car, when you're at work or whatever, make sure you tap into that location every single day so you do not miss an episode. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Also, shout out to the everydayers for joining me every single day here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We would not be here without you. We definitely appreciate that. You can be in every day or two. All you got to do is join in and tap in every single day to make sure you don't miss. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to work our way up to eventually talk about this stadium deal and other off-the-field things that have happened this offseason. While we're sitting here looking at this schedule this year, there's a stadium that might be close to being agreed to, and the Jaguars would then have some stuff attached to it that I'm sure fans won't like. We'll discuss that. On the field, it hasn't manifested itself yet because obviously we haven't played any games, but I do believe the Jaguars got better on the field this year. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll tell you exactly why I feel that way in segment 2. Segment 1, good, bad, and unknown of 24. So this is where I have to explain to y'all, everyone, every day, why I come up with certain things. I always talk about macro, always talking about keeping your eye on the bigger prize, right? And I knew that today was scheduled release day. So watch this. I'm going to practice what I preach. I know who the Jaguars are going to play. We just don't know the weeks that they're going to play them as of yet, right? So instead of me speculating about that all day today, because it's going to be here later on today, and by the time tomorrow comes, I'll know exactly who, where, when, how, why the Jaguars are playing. I decided to look at something bigger. And what that is where will the Jaguars be playing in the future? As opposed to me getting hoodwinked, worrying about stuff that I'll find the answer to tomorrow and be able to share that with you. I wanted to look at something that is bigger, that is going to be talked about here in our city for a while, and that is this stadium deal. But first, we got to get to what they're going to be putting in that stadium, right? On the field, off the field. So many times for us, what we've had here is bad messaging, right? I thought the messaging improved this offseason because it started with honesty. And if you follow this podcast, you know that I have said that. I kind of joked at first. It looked like they were hiding behind the truth or hiding in plain sight with the truth. But eventually, the words matched up to the action and the activity when they started having to get players. So I really applaud that and think that has gotten better. Also, even with the stuff with the stadium, that has gotten better until something came out yesterday. Ben Becker here, one of the local guys here in Jacksonville, did a great job of reporting and got some information about that stadium deal. And it absolutely took fans' eyes off of, okay, what's going on in minicamp? Who's the veteran we're going to sign now? Who's the edge rusher? Are they going to wear the throwback uniforms? Are they switching the jerseys back? It went from all of that goodwill stuff real quick to, I know they ain't talking about putting 2 games overseas. You see how quickly it goes? And that's why we do what we do here on Locked On Jaguars. We don't become too focused on what somebody's selling us right now. We look at the weather report and see what's coming on that stream for 2 weeks. We like to plan our thoughts out, and you have to be that way. You have to be that way with the Jaguars, because part of the bad that I'm going to talk about in segment 2 is your memory. Your memory that should be bad and should be traumatic, and whether or not that will play a part in how you view 2024 and the future. I mean, you can look at the future, you can look at the future, but you can't ignore what's in front of you, right? You can't ignore today, and you can look at today and you can't ignore what might be coming down the line. It works both ways. So that's why I call this the good, the bad, and the unknown. Because part of the unknown is how good they're going to be this year on the field. But I happen to think that they're going to be a better club. Yesterday, you heard me say 2 games. 2 games better. They're 2 games better. That means they're an 11-win football team. So that's kind of like me saying they'll be 2 games better. Hopefully, I think they'll be 2 games better. That's like me saying that a guy has a first-round grade on him, right? It's like you don't know. You got to wait. How do you know what? There's 32 picks, but you only got 16 guys with a first-round grade. Well, that makes no sense because they're going to be 32 people picked in the first round. We don't know what's going to happen in these games either. We don't know with injuries. What I'm strictly saying is getting themselves together and getting themselves prepared for this season. It looks to me that the Jacksonville Jaguars have gotten better on the field. It sounds to me as if the Jacksonville Jaguars have improved off the field as well with what they're going to do with the guys on the field in terms of the development, in terms of coaching, in terms of rotation, all the scheme, especially on defense, having things match up. All of those things have been looking like they're on their way up. Compare this to last season where the Jaguars did nothing and everybody was pissed. And then the season played out looking like they were a team that did nothing. They looked like they were a team that were waiting on things to happen. Well, this year, there's been more activity. The words seem to match up with exactly what they were talking about appears to be what they appeared to get exactly what they were trying to do. What they said they needed, they went and got it. And a quick reminder, last year they said they needed pass rush and they didn't touch it. They ended up getting better pass rush production, and they were right about that. But this offseason feels better because the Jacksonville Jaguars have done more things that match up with the things that they said, and more importantly, it matches up with the things that you saw. Like them telling us Luke Fortner was good last year when we knew he wasn't, but we were optimistic and we were hoping that they were right. And then all of a sudden, we were right. He wasn't. Now they fixed it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Something else that got fixed was this perception that the Jaguars were moving this franchise. I thought it got fixed, right? The fans around here went ballistic on Jason La-Canfora. They've been waiting to do that too, because I don't know who he worked for. I think he was NFL Network or CBS or somebody, or maybe he used to work for all of them. But La-Canfora, ever since a radio bit a few years back, when my man Rick Ballou, James Coleman, and all went off on him, has drawn the ire of Jaguar fans, and rightfully so. Because he kept saying the team was moving. And anybody that's around here, you know that wasn't true. And any thought that they were going to move had nothing to do with whether or not the team sold tickets. All of those things were things that we knew that weren't true. They took off on a life of its own, and part of that was because of the Jaguars' messaging in the past. Most people believed that bad messaging was being leverage that was being used to get a renovated stadium or a new stadium. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. But I love to check boxes off when things go well and things go in a different direction than folks have been saying when you knew damn well it wasn't going that way, right? But here's the problem. As soon as it seems to go that way and everybody takes a victory dance on Jason La-Canfora, things come out about what's in the deal. And immediately, everybody's saying, man, the hell with that stadium. Don't build that stadium. Who does Shad Khan think he is? Why? But why does who does he think he is? So I had to do some research. I had to look. I had to really, really, really get down and check it out. That's not what it seems. It's kind of not what it seems. I'm going to eventually get to the point where I can explain that to you in segment 3. I don't think it's going to make anybody feel any better. But that's the tenor of all of this. We've been talking about the good, talking about the bad. Why do I believe that this team is going to be better on the field before we get all that stadium talk? And I told y'all this early in the show, so you pipe down a little bit and understand that eventually I'm going to get to it. But I'm not going to tease you and make you hold on for it and wait. I'm just telling you right now, it's not as bad as you think, even though the optics of it. Remember, I talked about messaging. The optics of it just doesn't sound good. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you why I believe on the field they have improved. I'm going to tell you why. Now, I had to write this down to remind myself. I had to write this down and remind myself of the things that I believe they've done on the field. And I'll tell you a few other small things I think that were really, really little that got right. So I'm going to give you all the change. I always talk about loose change. I'm going to talk about some change that you don't leave on the ground. The Jaguars have seemingly not left those pennies on the ground. And now that they're at the cash register and they got exactly what they need in their pocket, they can be thankful for it. This is also a look back as to why you don't take every little thing seriously. We'll talk about all of that here and more in segment number 2 of our Good, Bad, and Unknown show here on Locked On Jaguars. Man, I got to tell y'all about the Gametime app, especially now that this scheduled release is around the corner. It is the absolute truth. And there will be big time games that I know you want to see, and Gametime is exactly where you can go and get them, even if you do it last minute. Take a glimpse at it. If you don't know what schedule you have at work, Gametime has all kinds of stuff like last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing, seat views, the lowest price guarantee, and Gametime ticket coverage. That's why if you want to go ahead and try to get on this right now, that ticket coverage will help you if you don't know your work schedule later on. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'm going to spell that redeem code for you. LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. We've been talking about the good, bad, and the unknown of the 2024 offseason so far, where I've been giving the Jags rave reviews on the field and off the field for the things that they did to help this football team, to the messaging. And then some little things. So I'm going to give you a little bit of analogy to explain the little things before we head to segment 3 and talk about the stadium proposal that I think is going to get voted. Yes, if it gets to a vote. I don't think it's going to even get to a vote. I think the city council is just going to approve it. I don't know how that whole thing works, but I think they got enough votes. And that's why everybody's optimistic it's going to get done. They gotta, people know that it's going to get done. But then the actual put it to a real vote, I don't think they really, really have to go through all of that. I don't know the whole process, but this is the way it was told to me. If nobody wants it to get to a vote, everybody's just they know that everybody has pretty much unilaterally agreed to it. How it's going to be perceived, that's going to be a whole something else, because the brakes got hit yesterday on everybody celebrating and shaking their neck at Jason Lockton, who always talked about the NFL wanted to move the Jaguars overseas, and as soon as we got happy enough to stomp all over his opinion, here comes some stuff out and it makes everybody look all crazy. But on the field, I think they've improved this football team. Let me tell you about the change I'm talking about. So there's this little story we used to tell in the barbershop. We used to tell our sweet guys, the young guys that we used to mentor in the barbershop back when kids wanted to get mentored in barbershops. Somebody would drop change on the floor accidentally. And, when you're a man, you don't pick somebody's money up for them unless you're giving it to them, right? If you see an older person, they drop money. But normally some guys will drop money and the sweet guys would see it. And the guys are like, I don't want it. So sweet guys will start sweeping after the guy left. It'd be like a quarter, a nickel, a dime, a penny. So as the sweet guy sweeping, the broom hit one of the coins. He said, I ain't picking it up. He says, why? He says, y'all told us don't be picking money up from me. I said, no, you pick it up to give it to him. If somebody drops money, you don't reach down and snatch it because you can start a fight. But if you see money, never walk past it. Pick it up. If you don't know whose it is, then you keep it. The point is the analogy that was given to the young man was, if you got to walk from here to the dollar store and you need $1, right? Or $1, any one of those dollar places, and you got 95 cents, right? And you walk and you find a nickel. You say, there it is, there's my dollar. Okay, I can go get whatever I want. And then you pass 4 pennies on the way over there. And then you see 2 pennies in the parking lot and you pass them. So you pass 6 cents. You go buy whatever it is for $1. And this is the mindset. You get to the register and she rings it up and it's $1.06. He or she rings it up and it's $1.06. You pass 6 pennies on the way over here. Now you're standing here at the moment of truth and you don't have enough money. All of those pennies matter. Get all of your change. The game is when you get to the register, right? But before you get to the register, you got to get all of that. Whatever you're supposed to be doing right now, you got to do it to the fullest. Everything that you're supposed to do that leads up to having a winning organization on the field, off the field, perception, reality, you got to do it. You remember my whole thing that I used to say eval is eval? And I learned this over a number of years talking to people that work in an organization that started my conversations by saying, Wig, you have no idea what we do every day. So I started paying attention and I started asking, well, what are y'all doing during this time? I do it to college coaches. What are you doing now? What are you doing now? So you know what? The Jaguars did a real good job of picking up the change this offseason. It started with accountability. And I know we joke about it, but many people can say that accountability only came because it was obvious. I don't care that it was obvious. At least they did it, because in the past, there have been things that have been obvious and there ain't been one word on accountability. There's only been finger pointing at other people. This is why last week when they started talking about those coaches that left here and who didn't teach who what, I said, no. Not from the standpoint of I don't want people's feelings to be hurt, but from the standpoint of mentally, if you're onto something new, look at what they've done this offseason. So I kind of agree with any player that would say, why y'all bringing it up? I think I disagree with the fact that my friend Demetrius was responding to a report, and it wasn't even a mean spirit report by me, O'Brien. He got lambasted with a text message, text messages and messages online, because one player thought he was going off. So this is how, when I say messaging can create a storm, also the thing that creates a storm is the memory of all the people that responded to it and didn't realize what the guy was saying. That comes from having a syndrome that has come from you being beaten down with negative news for so long, that the second anything that came up that really was a positive that looked like a negative, you swooned in and jumped on it because it's like, here we go again. Which leads me to my point of why it's important to always pick your change up, and why it's important that information be controlled. Stadium deal. Another one of those off the field things that if you don't believe it, it has affected things in the bottom line. Even though the Jaguars and the organization, everybody knows what the perception that they're going to move. You don't think a free agent hears that? You don't think, even if you're not a free agent, you're a draft pick and you're here and you constantly have to cut through that little bit of negativity, that you never really buy into the city and the place where you are. Now, I don't think that that's really ever happened here. But we always talk about players not wanting to answer questions about nonsense, like another teammate's foolishness. They also don't want to answer questions about stuff like this. When we say, well, it doesn't matter, man, they're getting paid. It doesn't matter whether they play here. No, it does matter. If I get on here and do a podcast and say, why is a player saying we need to get out of Jacksonville for a day or two, and it's only week 2 of the season, if I get on here and say that about where you are, how come it doesn't matter if he says it and I told him, what are you thinking about that for? If I can say that, well, I can also say this. All of this stuff matters to the perception of not only the fans, the people, the media. If you got players talking about they need to get out of town, what made you think that it was a safe landing for him to say that about Jacksonville, Florida, if everybody hasn't said that over and over again, and it was only week 2 of the National Football League? Pick the change up, man. So what we're going to do in segment number 3 is going to talk about the stadium deal that we know is going to get done. But we also going to talk about some other stuff. Like where they're going to play those games at once that stadium's built. And why are we giving the team so much money to play multiple games overseas? We're going to discuss it without a lot of education. I'm going to be honest with you right now. This is not the next segment that's going to make Wig sound like the smartest person or the smartest crayon in the box. But sometimes you need that simplicity because sometimes you need to sound like you don't get certain stuff because some stuff just doesn't need to be gotten. And then sometimes you need to calm down. I explained all of that to you in segment 3. But first, I have to let you know if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting, then make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, more on this stadium deal and why y'all should and shouldn't be angry. We'll talk about it here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm tell you, I win some money first, man. We're going to talk about FanDuel. That's right. It is winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Let me give you an example. Everybody said that it should have been Luka or Joker or who should have won the MVP. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander showed you last night that anybody who said that he was in the running, they ain't looking too bad, right? So you better figure that out when you're trying to make your bet. On FanDuel, though, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right. $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, and player props and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Decided to come in here today and just have a good, bad, and unknown of 2024. It's hard to discuss. I was going to do the good, then do the bad, and do the unknown, right? But let me tell you why it's hard to do that for me, because I don't have anything negative to say for 30 minutes. Not about this offseason, I don't. I absolutely don't. Now, I could come on here and talk about the good for 15 minutes and then talk about the idiots that are saying that it hasn't been good and all the detractors. I don't want to give those detractors too much time on the show. I don't. Y'all come here to hear good news. Y'all come here to hear good news that happens to just be me talking about our ops, right? Let them talk about us. We don't need to talk about them. Because the people that have been talking about the Jaguars moving somewhere permanently and they're not going to be here and it's not sustainable, they haven't been known. They've been talking about it anyway. All the fans don't support the team, fans don't buy tickets and all of that stuff. And we're sitting here literally living the reality of fans supporting the hell out of this team and buying tickets at a higher clip than almost half the other teams in the league. So folks have been saying stuff, but we've been sitting there the whole time and we're looking around going, what are they talking about? That ain't happening here. Right. And then the players come here and they realize that the experience here is way different than they get anywhere else, because you go to a big city. If you're the backup tight end, you might be able to go to the grocery store and nobody even knows you. If you're a special teamer gunner here, everybody in Jacksonville knows you. So the players, and some of them may or may not like that, right? Jacksonville is a different place. And because it's different, the team has figured out creative ways to increase and earn money. And one of those things has been to be one of the first teams, if not the first team, to sort of have a permanent home overseas. The Jaguars have played in London. I don't know how many years it is now. They played over there a long time. They've been playing away games. They've been playing home games and then away games, sometimes 2 games overseas. So inevitably, they had a pipeline overseas that they started with, and the NFL now has a whole bunch of people going over there, whether it's to Mexico or Australia or all these other places that they're trying to play these games. London, Wembley, they got multiple games in England. They might have played somewhere else too. Here's what happened. I think the Jaguars tapped into that market and increased their own revenue and their own visibility, and it's a good thing. Then this happened according to this stadium deal that the Jaguars in the deal allegedly are going to include that they continue that relationship with London. Okay. Now, one of the reasons they started doing it, and one of the reasons they justified for doing it, is because they weren't getting a lot of revenue, not from ticket sales, but mainly from stadium revenue, and that the stadium was outdated and they needed more revenue streams. And Fortune 500 companies buying advertising and selling of suites. So maybe if we make this stadium better, there's more revenue, right? It creates more revenue, sells more suites, gets more advertising because it's brand new. We get more partners. So eventually we don't have to go overseas to say that we need that money to make up. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the Jaguars said. I'm saying that that's the perception of how the fans and everyone else has felt because of what they have said, right? So when the stadium deal comes, I think most people thought that there was going to be an eventual, well, since the league now is mandating that teams go overseas and that there's just rotation that everybody goes, and that the Jaguars won't have to do that every single year because now we can create the revenue that they say that they were missing by getting this new stadium. y'all thought wrong if that's what you were thinking, because here's exactly what it appears is going to happen. The Jaguars are going to get that new stadium and get those new opportunities for new revenue, but they're going to keep that relationship with London that they have independent. And on top of that, the Jaguars will now also fall under the rules of the NFL that says once every 4 years, you're going to play overseas. And that one time that we're talking about every 4 years ain't got nothing to do with the fact that you already decided to go over there and play a game on your own. So that means once every 4 years, 2 games. And I'm not talking necessarily, so 2 games will be played abroad. Now, I'm not clear as to whether or not there will be 2 home games. So I'm wondering whether or not if every 4 years somebody's going to go overseas, but based on NFL mandate, does that mean you're going to lose a home game to overseas? Because eventually that might mean that everybody's actually going twice. Once as a home game and once as a road team. So I don't know. Does it mean the Jaguars are going to miss? Does it mean the Jaguars are going to miss 2 home games once every 4 years? Or does it mean that they'll just have 2 games? They had 2 games in London last year. One was a road game. Are you asking the citizens of Jacksonville, Florida to pay all of this money out? And of the 8 games that we think we're going to get every year, once every 2 years, we're only going to get 7 because one of those games is going to be overseas. Well, actually, no. If one of our games is overseas every single year, then you're only going to get 7 home games a year. And then once every 4 years, you're going to lose another one of those games. I'm not going to bellyache over 1 quarter of football per season because that's what it comes down to. If you miss a game, an extra game every 4 years, it's like you're missing 1 quarter of a game, which it's kind of silly way of looking at it, but it is. You ain't talking about a game, extra game a year. You're talking about 1 game every 4 years. Is that going to be a deal breaker? I don't know, but it sure feels funny. It shouldn't be a deal breaker, but it sure feels funny that on a day when everybody is happy, on the day where we've had all of the good messaging, on the day where I believe that they actually did everything right on the football field, they picked up all their change on the way to the grocery store, they got to the register, they had everything that they were supposed to have, only to find out the price of whatever that is they were buying, it went up yesterday. So now you still 25 cents short. That's the problem with this. It just feels like when everybody was celebrating and doing the slide and dancing around and saying they not like us with a big picture of Jason Lockenfora, then all of a sudden at the last minute, we're going to get a stadium. We had a good off season. The team is better. The future is looking bright. Trevor Lawrence going to get a contract extension that we'll talk about tomorrow because Jared Goff got a whole bunch of money. And then all of a sudden, the bill came, and one of the jokers that had been in there partying with us all night, he left early, and somebody got to pay his money. Somewhere Jason Lockenford looking like, I told y'all there was something else going on, didn't I? It just feels funny that on a day that something good happens for you, Jacksonville Jaguar fans, y'all got some explaining to do. Don't let that knock you down off the fact that I think, for the most part, it's been a good offseason. They've gotten their change. And that good things are coming for Jacksonville, Florida with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm glad y'all went on this journey with me today. Make sure you tap in tomorrow. I'll talk about Jared Goff and what that means for Trevor Lawrence getting his bag. We'll also go over the schedule. Eventually, maybe it'll be released by the time that I actually come back and do the show, or perhaps I'll wait for it. Then we'll come back, talk about Trevor Lawrence, and then talk about the schedule release. All here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. All right, man. Until the next time, take care.